Track Factory with my neighbor and buddy, Sammy.
Hey, man.
Hey. Let's talk about what we've been up to the last weekend.
Yeah, so Saturday got you to come up to Conway Twitty International Speedway, we like to call it, the Team Fun compound up there in Yadkinville, North Carolina.
That's fun.
Their annual November Fest. It's like the biggest weekend of the year up there at that track.
Was it like 50, 60, 70, 80 people there?
Yeah, it was good. It was a solid turnout. I mean, yeah, it's so fun.
Super chill vibe. That's a great time.
Yeah.
Track was nice too.
Yeah, they always put like a bit more effort into the track that weekend, and yeah, being in the winter, it's like a little better. This summer out there sometimes is a little bit tough, but yeah, for a backyard track, I've never rode a backyard track like that.
It's lighted.
It's got lights, and it doesn't feel like a backyard track. It feels like a real racetrack. It's yeah, it's solid. So yeah, I love going out there.
Nice and wide too.
Yeah,
you can choose a lot of different lines. A lot of backyard tracks are basically a trail.
For real, yeah, trail, or in like the backyard tracks typically aren't like perfectly flat. There's usually like some like waves.
Yeah,
and
I bet you could probably push
and
the front there if you're real careful.
I mean, it takes a really nice track to get the right feel to push the front.
And a really good rider.
The right feel, the right technique, yeah. But no, that's one of the things about that track. I think the first time I went out there was a year ago from Novemberfest, and that was the first thing. It was like how hard you can bury it into the corner and tuck the front under and just like play around with the...
Yeah, we both had some clips up and getting a lot of interaction on them of us kind of, well, us, you doing it on the Rotax. That was fun.
Yeah. How did that feel watching your Rotax get thrown around out there?
I didn't like it. I wouldn't do it that way. Like, he's definitely don't going too high. He's screwing around. It was really funny. It's really hard to be a rider and then switch over into kind of tuner mode. But on the other hand, I think being a rider makes tuning a little easier in some ways. But
oh, for sure. Yeah. But that's your baby, so like watching it out there getting abused and just like I was horsing around trying to dragging the thing on the ground. I think the foot peg, the shift lever was buried in the clay.
I think you dragged a little more on the ground than the foot peg.
Yeah, and then
what was that about?
Yeah, and then just like I was throwing it over, scrubbing the front, kind of just showing off. There's a bunch of people standing up there watching, and then I was like, I remember thinking going into the corner that time, I'm like, I'm gonna send it in there extra deep, really throw it on, and scrub the front, and then I was doing it, and it was just like so far over, and then something happened, and then my body dipped, and when my body dipped, it was just like over. Like as soon as the body dipped, it was face plant on the ground.
Yeah. Every racer's got to have a good excuse. That's an excellent racer excuse.
This is a breakdown of the crash. It's like something I feel often like when I'm racing is like it's like that body wants to dip sometimes for me, and I need to be better about like one thing I have to focus on is like really keeping my body straight up and down, not letting it dip to the inside too much.
I noticed you had a really good technique that you got up and rode away so you didn't have to deal with me.
I was like, I'll just shake it off and get out of here. Yeah. Yeah, but so seeing your baby get rode like that, what it like? I know it's tough for you. So what does that make you? What is that called, a cuck? Is that what that is?
Yeah, I think so. I think it might be. Yeah. I don't really have a good comeback for that, Sammy. Yeah. But in all seriousness, though, I don't build museum pieces. The whole factory thing, as people have heard, is a bit of a joke, that I take myself a little too seriously, so I was named that as an insult, so I just own it. But yeah, I like to have my stuff clean and nice, but on the other hand, it's not so clean. And if you actually look at the bike, it looks better on camera than it does in person. I mean, it's a race bike, and it needs to be raced, so I would much rather it be ridden as hard as it can take, because that's what it's built for, and it looks really good doing it. So it's fun, I've kind of become a builder. You know how this is, and in this business, there's no such thing as a only rider. I mean, maybe you are, but almost all of us normal guys, if you want to have a nice motorcycle, you have to build your own.
Right.
So So mixed emotions. It's fun to see a super talented guy, experienced on framers, really put it through its paces, and you're kind of a rock star there that night, and we think we had the rock star bike. So it was fun.
It was pretty cool, like firing that thing up. It's like you're starting up like a real race bike, and I was screwing around at first, but then towards the later half, we went to like race mode where we were like changing gearing. We were trying to get the setup right because we're racing in a couple weeks.
Yeah. So that's kind of, we sort of buried the lead why we did this. Of course, it was fun, but I would probably not take my bike to a backyard track. We would take like a B bike or a play bike there, but we're going to go race the Southeast Flat Track season finale November 19th in Nice, South Carolina. So there's probably going to be some heavy hitters. I think maybe we can even talk about that. Is that secret?
No, rumor has it Turner Racing Team is coming out, so we'll get to see who their riders are for next year. Is it the same? Is it the same as last year, which would be Trent Lowe and Evan Renshaw, or is it some people new? Like, I think we'll probably find out here next weekend.
And I bet you, whichever it is, they're not going to suck.
Yeah, they're going to be sending it. Those kids love the throttle. So it'll be cool to see whether we can...
Yeah, because we actually raced against them in the beginning of the year at a similar track.
Yep.
And we had an excellent result until about the last eighth of a mile.
So what, it was the stator? The stator?
No, it was ultimately the coil.
Oh, the coil, yeah.
But, it was one of those things that, I'd been injured and I hadn't worked on the bike well enough. And, one of the solutions is to buy a brand new dirt bike every year, and you get fresh wiring harness, you get fresh, things. Or if you do, if you build a framer, you slowly got to build a new bike every couple of years. And I hadn't, so the wiring harness was torn up, and we fixed that. We thought that was a problem, but it really was just a coil going bad.
Yeah. Got to the bottom of that, but there'll be some senders out there. I heard there might be some other guys from the Northeast coming down as well. So so it should be cool to put the Rotax and the old boys to the test. Like for me, riding that thing last weekend was just like, I felt right at home on it because I grew up racing framers and Rotaxes. When I was 14, I had a 600 Rotax and my dad got really good at fiberglass, which you know about that now. Since I crashed your bike, we broke the tail section. So
I can see that.
Time for some fiberglass repairs. It's definitely looking like a used race bike now with that broken tail section.
I broke down. We're going to try to put a new tail on it, freshen it up. Be factory.
Nice,
Get some new number plates.
Be factory. Got Tim at Pro Plates sending us some number plates. And we got my guys at Penske taking care of us on the suspension. So we sent the Penske shock and the forks
to the bike's apart.
To Penske today. So we're going to get a fresh revalve and soften it up a little bit for me. He's got this like old school stiff and low setup. I'm like, dude, soften it up. We want that shock to work. We have suspension for a reason. We want the suspension to move, right? Soak up the bumps. He
doesn't understand that what he thinks me doing is old school is actually new school because he's been off the Rotax for 15 years. So, we like to run the suspension in the sidewall a little more than Sammy does. So we like to argue about this, and we're going to try it his way. I think that I was stuck in my ways a little bit, and I think he doesn't really understand the modern Rotax framer a little bit. So we're kind of meeting in the middle. And we're going to try your setup on the shock, and maybe we had great arguments about gearing. That's the big one.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, usually you're like hammering me to drop more teeth, but then this last weekend at Conway Twitty Speedway, the thing was on the rev limiter. Did I say rev limiter? Rotax with a rev limiter? Cool. That's one thing I'm not used to. I'm used to like a Rotax just going, wah, just revving up crisp like a Harley XR, and rev limiter on this, which I don't know if I like it or not. I want to just have that thing just rev up and be like be revving high. But
should we talk? Should we get into the nerdy technical details about why that is and why we can't do it now and why we could in the past, or is that too
lay it on
me?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing, the cylinder head technology took a gigantic leap about 15 years ago. The limiting factor on our AMA rules back in those days was 600 with an overbore, which we all did, which was 614 cc's. Right. With that head size and the valves that you could fit in the cylinder in those days, you were sort of rev limited by the cylinder head, was just choking it. That was the problem. Now, when we go to the bigger bore, you can put bigger valves, and there's new cylinder head technology where they've lowered the ports, widened the ports to increase velocity. That's all way over my head, but the cylinder heads are different now, and the limiting factor for revs is no longer the cylinder head. The cylinder head can flow more than the crank can take. So now you can turn the big piston crank so fast that the crank will bend. So you cannot just hang them on the limiter because it will turn so fast, it will break the crank. And that's just a difference in the way that it used to be. So what you had a rev limiter, it was just the engine just hung. That's as fast as it would go. This will bend the crank, crack the cases, and it's done. So that's why in the modern configuration, to keep up, because the 450s, what do they do every year? Do they get slower?
No, they've been getting faster.
Yeah. So to take a 40-year-old motorcycle, we have to do things. And this is something new to him that my engine builder and Elliott Power Sports developed about 10 years ago, a soft and a hard limiter. So we're getting used to that.
Yeah, maybe there's some truth to that, but I feel like always growing up racing Rotaxes, we managed it with the gearing. Like I thought we had good flowing heads, and they would rev high, and we'd put a tack on it and only rev it up to 9 or 9 something. I forget exactly.
Yeah. See, how heavy was your piston? How heavy was your piston? Our pistons are way heavier now.
Well, because you're on the 680, is that what you're talking about? Yeah. So that's the other thing. I feel like I would be better off on a 600 Rotax on these short tracks that we're racing, where I could rev it up higher, have the RPMs a little higher in the corner, and have it really rev down the straightaway, and then have all that higher revving engine braking. And so now this bike's got some strengths too, just with it's ridiculously fast at the 680, but it's got to be rode totally different, where you're just whoa, just really lugging it, and hence it is good to have the limiter, because the 680s don't want to. You don't want to rev that too high. Yeah. But that was the other thing I wanted to talk about, is 600 Rotax versus 680, because I don't have much time on the 680. I kind of feel like it's more like a half mile, 3/8 mile motor than the short tracks that we're racing it on. I think now I gotta find a way to make it work on the short tracks, when maybe I'd rather have the 600 that I can just a crisp running 600 that you can just rev out to 10-2. Briefly, I think they can rev the 10K. I forget how high we would take them, but
not for long.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. I remember on Springfield short track, we were even asking Chris Carr, and he was like, "Yeah, so short track, okay, you can rev it a bit higher because it's only getting up to that high rev for a short period." Just whoa!
Rather at Springfield or DeCoing, it's hanging there for half a mile or something.
Right.
Yeah, so this is a great argument that we have. It's a friendly argument. It's a collaboration really, where we're trying to get to a solution. But particularly at Conway Twitty, where the track was so short. I mean, it's it's probably 550 feet around the bottom.
Yeah, just a typical second gear short track.
Yeah. So what we were experimenting with was, my contention is, when you're on the side of the tire, the engine cannot put down as much power when you're on top of the tire. So you're basically on the side of the tire the whole time. It was relatively wet, so it's a little bit slick. The track is short and round. Again, we're in second gear. He wanted more gearing, taller gearing, less teeth on the rear, and because it was on the limiter. And I'm contending that it was on the limiter just because as soon as you crack the gas, it's going to spin at 60 miles an hour. Drop a teeth, it's going to spin at 68 miles an hour. Drop a tooth, it's going to spin at 70 miles an hour.
So we ended up at a 38 tooth rear sprocket.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, we were running what the standard Rotax gearing there. I think we were 10 teeth taller.
Yeah. But then we're like, all right, let's take this to the next step. We went to third gear, and added some teeth, 46, went to third gear, and then it did make a difference. It wasn't just spinning up to the limiter. Sometimes I could kind of whack it and get it spun up to the limiter, but overall it was like hitting it kind of like it should be towards the end of the straightaway. But yeah, I think from where we ended up on gearing, we'd have to find the happy medium, because it was, in third gear, it was a lot in the middle of the corner, just whoa, whoa, whoa.
Sometimes the front tire was floating 2 inches off the track the whole way.
That was sick. Yeah, it was feeling good.
Yeah, it was really fun to watch him elongate the straightaways. You'll see in the footage just about running off the racetrack, over by the clubhouse. And then standing the bike up and turning it and floating the front tire off. it was just great to watch. Kind of gives me goosebumps to think about it. Super fun to do, super fun to watch.
Next time, your turn, huh?
Yeah, I almost rode. I was feeling frisky. It looked so good. My neck's feeling a little better. So yeah. I'm mad I didn't. The track was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, the track was good. I mean, I've seen it better because it was kind of sealed over. I've seen it better where it was just fluffing a little bit, but it was good. Yeah.
I think we got some good footage. Maybe we caught it, but some of the front understeer you were doing was peeling off like little Frito chip size of clay off the front tire, like coming up this way off the front. That was really cool.
Yeah, so the front scrub technique, let's talk about that a little bit. Is that actually a useful technique? Is that useful in racing, or is it just for showing off? What's your take on that?
The way you were doing it the other night was we were having fun. It was, there's people standing around taking videos. But yeah, for sure. I mean, sometimes, you just roll into the corner and you just keep turning, going a little too fast, and you just got to put a little bit more scrub on the front, kind of slow yourself down when somebody's, stuffs you up, or get a little bit more turn. Yeah, absolutely. I think it is. Don't you?
Yeah, I think it's good to practice that, but I find when I'm racing, you're never racing or doing a qualifying lap and really laying it over and scrubbing the front that much.
No, not that much.
So, but then I think it's good to get that technique down, because I was just looking at some footage when I almost crashed at the World Championship.
Yeah, I was seeing that. Somebody kind of backed you up or something, and you really had to dig the front.
Yeah, just like in that moment where it's like kind of like an oh shit moment, and I throw it in all the way and then cranked it a little bit, and it was just like, I don't remember doing that. That's all just reaction time stuff, and so that's, I think, where that comes in handy. But I think in race conditions, I'm not ever just normally scrubbing the front that much, but there's a time and a place where that can scrub it and slow you down.
Interesting. When I started racing here a lot, I'd gone to college and not ridden for several years. So coming back, we have some really fast guys here. National numbers. Will Davis from around here, and he and Robert Lewis, who we race with still to this day in his 60s. We'll stick it to you.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not paying attention, in a heartbeat. But just riding with him at some of our short tracks just to keep up, I would end up pushing the front in the middle of the corner, trying to get a little bit more mile an hour to get up to him to make a short track pass. You know how those are so terrible. You can only ever do this.
Right.
You need that little more. So it was really fun because I'm not a good enough rider to have just decided to do it. But chasing somebody, just keep on leaning, and eventually you're like, ooh, wow.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
Right.
Fun feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a fun feeling. It's such a unique, awkward feeling to slide the front. It's why it's like our version, the flat track version of the scrub and moto.
Yeah.
I think. Talk a little bit about how to do the front tire scrub. So, say on a 450 dirt bike, on a framer, whatever. If you're just leaned over a little bit and you're trying to scrub the front under, you're gonna have a little bit too much contact patch. And so to really do the scrub, it helps to really lay it over farther, get it more on the side of the tire, a little less contact patch, and then you want your setup to be right. So if you have too much grip on the front end, the front's just gonna feel heavy and you can't scrub it. Mm-hmm. But if you have your setup right and you have it leaned over, the track makes a big difference, having the right amount of grip and slip, and then you get it over on the side, and then it's kind of just sliding a little bit, and the front's not gripped too much. If it's gripped too much, you're not going to be able to do it. But if it's sliding a little, you can just, if you're going in fast enough and you're low enough, you can just turn it under like that, and then just start to feel it. It's a great feeling. So that's how you scrub the front.
Easier, yeah. It's super easy now. We all can do it, right?
And so, how about some setting tips to get your front end to scrub? And this is something I use racing all the time. If I'm racing one of these 450 dirt bikes, I come in the corner and the front's so heavy it's wearing out my forearms. So you want to take some traction off the front, because you don't want when I'm racing, I want it to have good balance front and back on traction. I don't want the front to have a ton of grip and the back's just pivoting around on the front. So a lot of times when I ride other people's bikes, like amateurs' bikes, that's how it is. The front's just so hooked up. So one of the main things I look at is the rebound on the forks, and if I want less grip on the front, I'll slow the rebound down and help with that. And if I want more grip, the opposite, you just speed the rebound up. And then
does tire pressure do anything? Do you like to put more air in the tire if it's too grippy?
Yeah, for sure. Typically, when I'm racing, I'm not like trying to raise the tire pressure up too much higher to get that, but certain cases, yes. And like out at that track, on the weekend track at Conway 280, I bumped up my tire pressure a little higher than normal just on the front, just knowing I was going out there stunting more or less. Like I'm just gonna like want to turn the front and put on a show. So looking at that, and as well as my front tire is like super wore out, probably because I've been pushing it around like that as well. But yeah, that helps it slide also.